A good week for Native Americans. What will actually change? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, I feel kind of strange reporting on this because I don't want to fall into the trap of what I consider to be diversionary tactics in regard to the monuments being torn down, whatever. But I'm on ESPN right now, and they're saying that on Monday, that is tomorrow, because right now it's actually Monday because it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but that the the team formerly known as the Washington Redskins will change their name. Now, I've been told by a couple, I got to tell you, I don't have a lot of Native American friends, but the few that I do have, Larry St. Amant, have been told that term is offensive. I don't know where to get an actual consensus as to Native opinion about anything, just like it's very difficult to get a consensus understanding of Black American opinion about anything. But the National Congress of American Indians has, since 2013, been going after the Washington Redskins for their name. Now, what's really interesting, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but there was a guy who was walking around with a Washington Caucasians shirt.
There's a group of white guys across the street looking at me, no big deal, as they're walking across. One of them points at me, and then after that, they start posturing as if they're gonna come over to me. And one of the guys actually stopped the rest of the other two guys and I guess told them it's not that serious and to keep on walking. It was quite a surprise that seemingly people were ready to come have some type of actual altercation with me over my shirt.
It's very, very interesting to me that there are some people that took so much offense to that when the term Caucasian is not even an insult. But these folks were supposed to just countenance the Washington Redskins, and then there's this sort of like dismissive, like, oh, come on, what else is going to happen? It's one of those things that's such a curious reaction to me when people say, what else are we going to do? And they don't understand the implications of what they're saying. Because on the one hand, you have people saying, hey, that's a really racist thing to say or racist thing to do, or General Lee was a really racist, horrible individual. And when the response, instead of thinking carefully about the implications of what that means for these different affected groups within the country that's supposed to be a melting pot, if America is supposed to be a melting pot, then that means that there are some elements that disintegrate in the melting. That's what melting is. Some of the stuff goes out into the ether. You don't leave with the same blocks of elements that you had when the melting pot happens. Some things get lost in order to achieve that melting. And so it's very interesting for people who are immigrants, for example. There are certain aspects of their culture, their language, and things like that get lost when they get subsumed into America, and we expect for that to happen. But then there seems to be other groups of Americans who don't believe that they should lose anything when the melting pot happens to start melting. And for me, it's very simple. If you have a clear and obvious racist element in your society that's still being propped up or celebrated or used as a logo, that those things need to go so that America can continue to actually live up to the idea of what it was supposed to represent. And I think that's one of the things that are being lost in this current cultural conversation. I think there's groups of people in this country who feel like their country, that they're losing their country, and there's a sense in which they're right. But if America is a melting pot, it wasn't supposed to only be your country in the first place. And I think there's groups of people in this country that are having a significantly hard time with accepting that reality. America only does not belong to one group of people. It belongs to all of us. And that being the case, the idea that we could just have people, and again, I don't know how the majority of Native Americans feel about this particular issue. All I know for me is that I think it's crazy. If there was a team called the Blackskins with a a black smiley character, I'm combining the Cleveland Indians and like if there's a Blackskins team, like that would be absolutely offensive to me and we wouldn't tolerate it. So all I'm doing is looking at this situation from my lenses. But if you are tired of hearing about racism all the time, it's possible that people are just completely oversensitive and you're right and everybody else is wrong and they're just oversensitive. It's also possible that maybe your forefathers really were that horrible. And maybe your country really was founded and built upon and erected in a racist structure. And now these things are being deconstructed and now you're having a hard time with it. That's possible too. And the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. But I think what you're seeing is we're having a paradigm shift in America to some degree, because at the end of the day, I don't really look at metaphorical victories as victories. Metaphors are important because of symbology and symbolism. And so this is a symbolic win, maybe, for our Native American friends, but a real win is anything that's relative to policy. And we actually have something for policy in regard to Native Americans. A couple days ago, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that about half of Oklahoma is actually Native American land. So it's really, really interesting when you look at how the voting went. The decision was 5-4 with Justices Gorsuch, Sonia Sotomayor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Elena Kagan, and Stephen Breyer in the majority, while Justices John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, Samuel Alito, and Clarence Thomas dissented. Surprise, surprise. That John Roberts guy, you really don't know how he's going to vote when he votes. It's unbelievable. The ruling will have significant legal implications for eastern Oklahoma. Much of Tulsa, the state's second largest city, is located on Muskogee Creek land. The Muskogee Creek Nation chaired the court's decision. So that's a win, but at the same time, it's like, wow, it took till 2020 for something that was obvious, must have been obvious and plain as day to lawmakers. It took till 2020 for that decision to be made. Here's what John Roberts said in his dissenting opinion. The Chief Justice wrote, the decision will undermine numerous convictions obtained by the state as well as by the state's ability to prosecute serious crimes committed in the future and may destabilize the governance of vast swaths of Oklahoma. Notice, he didn't say a word that these guys were wrong. What he talked about was the implications for the legal apparatus in that particular area. And the only thing I would say to Mr. Roberts is that, A, none of that is pertinent to whether or not this is something that's legal and something that the Supreme Court should decide upon. Your job is not to deal with the implications of what a decision is going to have. Your job is to just simply deal with the cold facts of the case. That's number one. Number two, I'm pretty certain that these native peoples can police themselves and handle their own legal issues. I'm sure if there's a serial killer out there and now that his sentence is going to be commuted, I'm sure that the Muskogee Creek Nation, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm sure they've got people that are smart enough to know that they still need to deal with that guy. And there are elders in that tribe or whatnot, or a group of people that can communicate with law enforcement and turn people over. I'm sure they've got their own laws for that. So I think that that's actually a ridiculous reason for dissenting. Because one, it doesn't pay attention to the law as it is, and two, it's almost an underestimation of these native peoples. I'm sure they know how to police themselves. I think they'll be okay. So, look, I think that this is progress to some degree. I mean, I'm very happy that we've got a guy like Larry in our crew, because I do think that, the native peoples are still peoples that need to be counted and to have their cause taken up for. And so from that perspective, this is good news all around. It's been a good week. And look, to those of you who are afraid that you're losing your country, you are losing your country. But I think the country you're going to wake up to in the next 10 to 15 years is actually going to be a better country for all of us, and that is the ideal of America. I do not believe that there are secret forces at work in the United States that are out to destroy the United States. BLM is not out to destroy the United States, and these individuals are not out to destroy the United States. But the cause of justice has to go forth, and wrongs have to be righted, and then we can all move on together. But the time when people are going to pretend that they're good with stuff that they're not good with, that's gone. That's long gone, and I think that's better for everyone. So anyway, I'm going to be really paying attention to the comment section here. I always do in Middle America, but I just want to learn from a couple of our Native friends and Native American individuals. I'm going to actually be posting this in a Native American forum, a couple of Native American forums on Facebook, because I just want to see what folks have to say about it. So there you go. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.